Welcome to Season 6 of Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real, introducing corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner, introducing their great idea in our guest blog, found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest joins us from Hamilton, Ontario. Jenn Grachow is a brand photographer who shares one of the most empowering things about her business, helping camera-shy people who have never liked a photo of themselves see each other in a new light. Let's find out how Jenn is using strategic imagery to help businesses grow. It's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Jenn.
Hello there.
Hi. I have to tell you, this whole idea of camera shy in today's day and age, when we seem to constantly have a camera somewhere in our face, someone else is taking a picture. How do you help people with this whole idea of, I'm kind of uncomfortable with that?
So when I'm working with business owners, I really am, we've got a plan and there's a reason for it, right? Couple of things that I always tell people that number one is a photo of you is not for you today. A photo of you is for 20 years from now when you look back and say, wow, I look really good. And it's for those people around you. It's for your clients to get to know you. It's for your family to remember you. It's for like you look in the mirror. This is the other point, actually, why people don't like photos of themselves. We only see ourselves in mirrors. We don't see ourselves the way other people see us.
Very true.
And photos are the way other people see us, not the way we see ourselves. So you'll ask people, do you prefer a selfie or do you prefer a photo? They'll prefer the selfie because that's how they see themselves, but that's not how other people see you.
Oh, that's a really cool point. I had never thought of that before.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
So it's kind of a fun way to get people out of their heads and going, oh, wait a minute. Okay. So it gets them that little bit more in there and they're like, okay, I think I can do this. And then again, when you're doing photos for your business, it's part of marketing. It's that larger component, right? So you need to have a presence, especially when you're a service-based entrepreneur or a solopreneur or a small business, and you're relying on people coming to you. And the worst thing you could ever do is not look like yourself online and in person, because it takes a lot to build that trust. And as soon as that trust is gone, it's like, oh crap, now what? Right?
You know what? You raise a really great point. And that is, we've all been to these events, hearing speakers, or, we meet people for the first time outside of, social media posts. And sometimes in person, they don't look at all like their photo.
Exactly.
So is there kind of a rule of thumb about how often you should update the photos on your website, get new headshots, kind of, participate in your ongoing marketing with images that are more recent rather than, like you say, the images from 20 years ago?
Yeah. So there are some, but again, like everything, they can be broken a little bit here or there. A lot of it depends on your business and what you're trying to do, right? So if you are somebody who needs to, like an advisor of some sort, maybe your social media, like they have a lot of rules around what they can do. So you may or may not want to go into the huge social media marketing, branding yourself kind of idea. Right. You might just need a great headshot every year or two as you change. Right. And I know we all like to say, I look exactly the same as I did 2 years ago. I'm telling you, you don't.
You don't. Very true. Very true.
But like, that's just one example of like where maybe you can have a little more longevity of your photo.
Sure.
Right. Now, if you are somebody who's relying on social media to really get your foot out there, to keep engaging people, to tell your story, and you want to do speaking gigs and things like that, you're probably going to have to do a little more frequently, and you're probably going to do bigger sessions that give you more variety,
right?
That you can use them. So say if you come and do a brand session and you could use your photos for 6 months to a year, we're not saying after that year you can't ever use those photos again, but you're probably needing to update and add some new ones in, as well as those ones that you had from the past and before. And there's always ways to reuse like photos you've done in the past, but they have to be done strategically, right? Like you're not just going to go, oh, I love this photo, so I'm just going to post it. It's like, no, why are you posting it? What's the story behind it? What's the messaging? Like you need to have a reason for it.
So, and I love your reference to strategic.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, you need the variety to introduce the person behind the logo, to your point about being in the service business, right?
Yeah.
Because, sometimes we change our hair every 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
And so if all of your branding has you with really long, wonderful curly hair, and then you show up for a gig and you've got this shirt, they're going to like, well, you don't even look like the person that we've been marketing for this event. So
Yeah.
that's a really great point. Just you have to throw out the photo. You just have to
No.
use it strategically.
And I've done this with clients that have like curly hair or straight hair, or they go back and forth. Is we'll do a couple of sessions maybe throughout the year. And one session they'll be all curly. The next session they'll be all straight. So they've got that mix and match ability depending on like, okay, I'm going to go to this event and I know my hair will be curly for it. So then they'll send, like if they're speaking or whatever, they'll send the
Sure.
pic that way. Or it's like, okay, nope, this is how I want to be for this one. So they can pick and choose how they show up because again, with personal branding these days, we're talking about a whole person. We have so many people do so many things that it's no longer, I am one thing and that's it.
So true. Now, how did
Yeah.
you get into photography? Because clearly at some point in time, you were on the other side of the camera and now you've decided to go behind the scenes. So how did you make the transition into photography?
So, okay. So I was one of those kids that like I danced. I loved to perform. I loved to do all those things. I also discovered photography as a science fair project when I was 14. So
Wow.
I kind of fell in love with it then. I loved the technical. I loved watching the magic happen because in the darkroom, you actually like you took the photo, then you went to the darkroom and you watched the magic appear. It was captivating, right? Wanted to do that. So as I progressed, like I went to school for photography. I actually studied it. That's what my degree is in.
How cool is that?
I know. Like I'm one of the few people I think that actually does what their degree says.
Yeah, very true. That's very true.
But I knew I loved working with people. Like everything I've ever done, customer service, hospitality, marketing, everything was always done with people. So I knew whatever I did, it kind of needed to be with people. So I started in weddings. I did that for about a decade. And it was a great training on personalities, how to deal with a lot of people, how to deal with like pressure and crazy situations. Like you don't always have a beautiful picturesque location for your photos. You have to figure it out. Some of the best photos I have are beside dumpsters, believe it or not. But the light, the background, like again, you don't see the dumpster. We crop that out. But everything else about the photo is fantastic, right? Like you just, again, you have to get creative in a lot of situations. So I brought that into my personal branding. I also I dabbled in boudoir, family photos, all that kind of stuff. And what I really found what I really loved was the empowerment of women, especially when it came to boudoir photography. So I'm like, okay, I love this element. I can't figure out how to market boudoir. I couldn't do it at the time. I'm just like, all right, forget it. But what I loved about it, I figured what I loved was the empowerment element. So what better way to bring it to women in their businesses? Because women second guess themselves left, right, and center, even when they're completely competent, completely qualified, and they know what they're doing, but we've got this self-doubt about us. So if you've got great photos, it kind of puts you in that, wait a minute, that person is a person who can do this. Right. So let's go.
It adds to the credibility factor, right?
It does 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Now, let me ask you, you use obviously some of the amazing clients that you've had to market your business. Hence, not only the backdrop that you're using for today's discussion and video for those who are listening to us on a podcast, but we also used it in the marketing pick. How comfortable are you in front of the camera, getting photos taken and using them for your own personal branding?
It's taken a while, but I will jump in front of a camera. At this point, I'm of the mindset of this is who I am. This is what I look like. Let's go.
I love that comfort because you're absolutely right. We agonize over, every piece of hair, every collar. And so it takes actually away from the naturalness of the environment in which we're having photos taken. And I very much assume that when you have a client for a photo shoot, it's your job, right? It's your job to make sure that the collar's not inside out or that, the hair is all messed up or whatever the case may be, because you want the person to be translating their personality into the camera, not necessarily all the bits and pieces, right?
Exactly. And the other thing that we have to remember is clothing does weird things in photos, and we're not perfect. We shouldn't aim for that perfection. Like like everybody's like, oh my God, it's not perfect. It's not straight. And there are people that are very like, must everything be straight and everything be this way. But again, you turn your body, things aren't going to be
The
what you
same.
think of straight,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's just not the way it goes. But we, again, like I've got a great makeup artist who's my second set of eyes on things. So she's constantly,
Sure.
let me adjust this, let me fix that.
Right.
But yeah, at the end of the day, like the clients just need to feel comfortable and happy and all the
Sure.
things. And when I'm going over their photos with them, I'm like, you're looking at two things. You're looking at the expression and you're looking at the pose and the messaging that's in that photo.
Sure.
Everything else, we can see what we can do if we need to do anything at all. Because as I
Right.
say, there's a beauty in imperfection, right?
Yeah, for sure. For
Because when
sure.
we try to be that too perfect, there's something I think that takes away that adds a falseness, especially with everything else that's around now. Like
Sure.
people are starting to question, is that real? Is it not real? The little imperfections add to realness. Now, I'm not talking 6 fingers by AI. That's not it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned darkroom, and
Mm-hmm,
now I know that everything is digital, because there was a
mm-hmm,
time when I was a hobby photographer. I still have my dad's, ancient 35 millimeter, when I did
mm-hmm.
the same, took a course. I loved going into the darkroom, which is
Yeah.
probably no longer how photos are done. Everything's digital. So in terms of the future, where do you see the future of your business going? Because everybody is talking about AI, everybody's talking about, digital imaging, but I personally don't think that there is ever going to change the need for having someone like you to take a photograph of someone like me, so that I can share with that target market the person behind the logo.
Yeah. So yeah, and here's the thing, like, I mean, you've got all these tools, right? Like, and there are ways to use tools in great ways, and there's ways to go, yeah, that's not a good idea, especially
Right.
for your business, right?
Right.
When you're a person and you're doing business with other people, you need to make it authentic. So because I work with people, I'm bringing out your personality. I'm not just capturing what you look like. I'm not putting you in some like crazy place. Like if you want to go to Paris, let's go to actually Paris. Let's not just Photoshop
Right.
you into something, right?
Sure.
People see through that,
Yeah,
right?
for
Like
sure.
they
Yeah,
do.
for
Like
sure.
you can do it, sure, have fun with it, no problem. And it's great when you put yourself on your own vision board. But when it comes to truly doing the photos, like again, you'll note a lot of people are in very plain backgrounds. And I do that intentionally because when you're doing marketing, you might need to extract yourself and put yourself into some other scenario, or you might need to put a title beside you or anything along those lines. And I like to make sure it's as easy for people to do those things as possible. So again, to where things are good to use it, you still need that photo of you, right?
Yeah,
I
so
know other
true.
photographers have played with like, okay, what happens if I put myself into AI, and they do it, and it's like it's still not them, because it's
Right.
amalgamating what they think is the perfect and taking some of you and creating this kind of Frankenstein of like
Yeah,
of you
an
to many a
image that,
degree.
yeah, and you know
Yeah,
what? I think it hurts your brand, right?
it will absolutely. If
Yeah.
you are trying to come across as somebody authentic because you are doing certain things, like we are, we don't operate on 98% of our functions. 98% is like subconscious,
Yeah.
right? So our brains will automatically go, is that real? Like even if you have no idea what you're thinking, it's going,
Mhm.
I like this
Mhm.
person, I don't like this person. Something's right, something's wrong. Like
Yeah.
it's doing it automatically and you won't even necessarily know it's happened. It's like, yes, people, do you judge people by their photo? People go, no, you do. 150% you do.
Yeah, for sure. And I still think that saying is true. A picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Because to some of these wonderful things that you've talked about, emotions, expressions, clothing, all of those things are part of your personal brand.
Yeah.
And it's really important to make sure that what we're conveying to that end user is really authentic. And I think that's a really good point to make, for sure.
Yeah. And we have micro expressions. We don't even realize it. Like when people are like between two photos, they're like, oh, it's a micro expression difference. This one is
Sure.
saying this, but this one is saying that. Right.
Right.
And they start seeing it the more we go through their images and going, okay, what do we like about this and what do we like about that one kind of
Sure.
idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now tell me, you've mentioned that you've obviously had a very long and very successful career in
Mhm.
photography at this point. So if someone was to say to you, Jen, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? What do you think your business is going to look like? How would you respond to that?
Oh, it's a great question because my business is never what I think it's going to be.
True.
It's always just like,
True.
again, I kind of go with my goal is to continue working with women entrepreneurs. I love working with men too. Like, for me, it's all personality driven, right? Like, if we can
Sure.
create, if I'm the photographer for you, we're going to create great images. If I'm not the photographer for you, there's a lot of other ones out there that are happy to work with you, right? Like,
Sure.
I just want to have like really cool people to work with, really cool projects to work on. And that's kind of how I see my business going still for the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the things that we do in the guest blog is we share 3 words of advice. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to wrap up our conversation today by talking about your 3 words, which are be tenacious, bold, and adventurous.
Yeah. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, you definitely need tenacity because it's not going to be handed to you. It's never going to get easier. It just will change. So you
So
need to
true.
be tenacious.
Yeah.
You need to be bold. You need to be confident enough to make some decisions and right or wrong, own them and move along and like just keep going. And you need to be adventurous. If there's an opportunity that comes up that might be a little out of your wheelhouse, figure out how you can make it work because there's so many great things that you don't even know where your path's going to take you that you just need to be a little adventurous and go, that intrigues me. It scares me a little, but it gives me the goosebumps that I need to follow.
That's a really great piece of advice for sure. Well, I want to really thank you for taking some time to spend with us today. You've given our viewing and listening audience some really cool things to think about. And I know that the folks on the podcast, to your point about it's also voice inflection and the way we communicate in terms of the words that we use too. So I know that the folks who are not seeing the video, but are hearing us on the podcast will have been able to realize that the genuine passion that you have for your business also comes out in your voice. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. To our viewing and listening audience who joined us today for this edition of Keeping It Real, I had the pleasure of introducing you to the person behind the logo. If you'd like to connect with our guest, you're going to find Jen's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, author, artist, and the founder and host for the series. And we invite you to share your business story. Just visit our website, shareyourstories.online, and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.